Welcome back to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are looking at something absolutely wild from the bleeding edge of software dev. If you're tracking AI right now, you know we're way past the days of chatbots just answering questions. We are officially in the era of action. Today, we're tearing down this concept of agentic engineering, specifically zeroing in on a project built to create a full-on developer assistant. We're going to break down what that actually means, what this agent can pull off, and why the timeline here is just mind-blowing.
25. Seriously, let that number sink in for a second. We're not talking about a project that's been cooking for years, or even a few months. The snapshot we're analyzing today captures this engineering project at exactly day 25, less than a month of development. Hitting a milestone like this in under 30 days builds this incredible sense of momentum. It tells us that iteration cycles in this space are moving at light speed. We aren't just looking at static software here. We are looking at something that is evolving incredibly fast.
So to really get this momentum, we have to look at the framework driving it all. Based on our source material, let's nail down what agentic engineering actually means in this specific context. Basically, it's a project framework totally focused on developing an active AI coding agent. And honestly, the absolute keyword there is active. We aren't talking about a passive autocomplete tool, the stuff that just guesses your next line of code. No. Agentic engineering is all about building an autonomous system that can execute complex workflows completely on its own. It's about creating an AI that acts instead of just reacts.
And that brings us to the project's identity, the developer assistant. Now, framing this within that active agentic context means we really need to stop thinking of this as just some fancy IDE plugin. You've got to think of this developer assistant as a digital employee. The whole point of this project is essentially onboarding an AI and having it step into a super technical, demanding role right alongside human engineers. It is a digital colleague, complete with a real job title and actual responsibilities.
Which logically brings us to the most practical part of our explainer today. If we're essentially hiring a digital employee for a heavy-duty technical role, we've got to ask the big question: what skills does this developer assistant actually bring to the table? Having a cool job title is one thing, right? But having actionable, real-world utility is a whole different ballgame. At day 25, an agent is really only as good as the tasks it can reliably execute. So let's pivot from who this agent is to what its resume looks like and see what it's been engineered to pull off so far. All right, here is the real meat of the source material. By day 25, this developer assistant has nailed down 3 core competencies: code review, bug fixing, and documentation. If you're in software dev, you know this is basically the holy trinity of maintaining a code base. For under a month of work, that is a wildly impressive foundational resume. Let's unpack each of these skills to really grasp their impact.
Let's kick things off with code review. Now, for us humans, this takes deep analytical thinking. But for an AI, establishing code review as its first major skill means this developer assistant is successfully parsing massive amounts of context. It's analyzing complex logic written by humans and jumping straight into a critical QA role right out of the gate. It's evaluating architectural choices, checking stylistic consistency, and doing all of this without losing the plot across dozens of different files.
But as we all know, spotting a problem during a review is one thing. Actually deploying a working fix is a totally different beast. And that brings us to bug fixing. This is where that active part of the agent we talked about earlier truly shines. The developer assistant doesn't just, flag a bunch of errors in a console and call it a day. It actively generates the solutions, writes the necessary patches, and modifies the codebase itself to squash the bug. It goes from being a passive observer to an autonomous executor.
Rounding out the whole workflow is documentation. Because let's be real, you can write the most brilliant, elegant patch in the world, but if you don't document it, you're just creating a massive headache for the rest of your team. By mastering this step, the developer assistant proves it can take its own complex, autonomous code changes and translate them into clean, readable records for its human teammates. It takes the technical actions it just executed and synthesizes them into human-readable summaries. It flawlessly closes the engineering loop. Analyze the code, deploy the fix, document the change. Boom.
We've looked at the framework, met the digital employee, and walked through its pretty staggering 3-part resume. But I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought. Just look at the sheer momentum we've unpacked today. If this developer assistant has successfully mastered autonomous code review, bug fixing, and documentation by exactly day 25, what on earth does day 50 look like, or day 100? The trajectory outlined in our source material points to a future where AI's capabilities in software engineering don't just grow, they compound at an astonishing rate. It definitely leaves us pretty eager to see what this digital colleague is going to learn next. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.